Good day to you all. This is Global Weekly News, serial number 4. The first item is revolt in Sri Lanka. During the French Revolution in 1789, people picketed the Bastille prison near Paris on 14th July. They raised the slogans of liberty, equality, and fraternity. On 9th July, millions of people were on the streets of Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka. They demanded the resignation of the president Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe, the prime minister. They entered the presidential palace. People enjoyed the luxury rooms in the palace and the swimming pool in the palace. On 9th April, in the midst of the severe economic crisis, people in large numbers took part in the demonstration before the president's palace by putting up tents and all that. On 9th of May, the then Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa resigned. Gotabaya made Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister. Well, he was the only MP in his party. On 9th July, Gotabaya fled away from Sri Lanka to Maldives first, then to Singapore, and may seek asylum in Saudi Arabia. He faced hostile demonstrations in the Maldives also by Sri Lankan people living in Maldives. You can go through a full-page article in the English Hindu dated 17th July on the developments in Sri Lanka. How important the dates are 9th April, 9th May and 9th July. Due to the following of new economic policies, Sri Lanka is facing an unprecedented economic and financial crisis. Income through tourism has dwindled down to a great extent in the past 2 years due to Corona. In the first few decades, Sri Lanka government signed 16 agreements with the IMF to get loans and loans. These loans always accompany austerity measures, stringent conditionalities. If the tortoise enters a house, it will be doomed. There's a saying. Similarly, if IMF enters a nation, the nation also will be doomed. Due to the lunatic act of the rulers in Sri Lanka of suddenly banning the use of chemical fertilizers, food grain production has declined to a great extent. People are facing skyrocketing price rises of petrol, diesel, and essential commodities. There was a civil war in Sri Lanka for about 30 years. The government spent too much on the military for the genocide of Tamils. Foreign exchange reserves also have declined very much. Rajapaksa family members are holding 6 important portfolios in the cabinet. How long can the people remain calm? They made tents in the vacant place opposite the president's palace and started shouting, "Gotabaya, go back." People have to stand in long queues to get petrol from the petrol pumps for hours and days together. Though Sri Lanka is an island and abundant in fish resources, people do not have fish. Due to the scarcity in diesel, the fishing boats did not venture into the sea. There was no stock of milk powder also. There was repression on the people, and this has not driven away the surging crowds outside the palace. Now Gotabaya has officially resigned on 15th July. Ranil Wickremesinghe became the interim president. The new president will be elected on 20th July, and today, 28th July, the Ranil Wickremesinghe, the lone MP of his party, with the support of Gotabaya's party MPs, he won. So Ranil Wickremesinghe has won as the president. People are against him also. People want executive presidency system to be abolished. Except the left, all the rightist forces consider IMF loans as the only solution for the present crisis. The left has put forward an alternative plan. The left wants a self-reliant economy and wants to avoid the dependence on imports, universal public distribution system, strengthening of public services are also the demands of the left. IMF does not like this alternate plan. It wants to return on every dollar it gives as loan. Will justice prevail in Sri Lanka? Will the people of Sri Lanka arrive at a proper solution for the present crisis? Let us wait and see. Presently, Ranil Wickremesinghe, after getting elected as president, he is also facing protests outside. Friends and comrades, second item is on Argentina, South American country. 46 years back, on 24th March 1976, the leftist president Isabel Martini Perón's government was overthrown by a coup supported by USA. Disastrous military dictatorial rule was there between 1967 and 1983. State terrorism and human rights violations were there. Rightist death squad AAA hunted anybody connected with the socialist movement. More than 30,000 students, activists, trade unionists, writers, journalists, and artists were kidnapped and tortured. Their properties and even their children were seized by the military forces. More than 500 children were separated from their families and handed over to military families. After 1983, after restoration of democracy in 2002, government decided to observe 24th March as National Day of Truth and Justice. March 24 is now a national public holiday from 2006. For more than 30 years, every year on 24th March, lakhs of people took part in protests in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, demanding justice for the victims of the past dictatorial rule. Due to COVID-19, for 2 years, there was no protest. But this year, on 24th March, more than 1 lakh people protested carrying a large flag containing the photos of 30,000 victims. There were protests in many cities of Argentina also. Court trials in the past 16 years convicted 1,058 accused people. On 6th July, Buenos Aires court sentenced 19 former military officials from 4 years to life imprisonment. The third item is Bolivia. In October 2019, far-rightist forces protested against former socialist president Evo Morales, instigating violence and racism. Luis Fernando Camacho led these protests. Bolivian judges postponed the trial against Luis Fernando Camacho and his father on 11th July due to threatening phone calls. There were phone calls threatening danger to their lives. Therefore, the judges postponed the trial. Luis Fernando Camacho and his father conducted a coup against Evo Morales in November 2019. US was very much behind this coup. Democracy was restored in November 2020. Movement towards socialism has come to power with Louis Arc as the president. Recently, ex-right-wing President Junin Anis was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. The fourth item is, let us go to Brazil. Elections in Brazil. On 6th January 2021, when counting of votes was going on in the capital, Washington DC, supporters of Donald Trump raided the place. There were riots. Similar incident may occur in Brazil. Also, when presidential elections is held on 2nd October 2022, this year. The candidate of the left, Comrade Lula da Silva, is most likely to get elected as the next president. The present president, Jair Bolsonaro, in his radio speech, has asked his followers to do what they like to do. Eduardo Bolsonaro, son of the president, was one of the international poll observers during Trump's poll. Another son, Flavia Bolsonaro, in a press interview has said that Bolsonaro family will not be responsible for what their supporters do. These talks are very much indicative of violence by supporters of Bolsonaro during the elections on 2nd October. India's experience under such circumstances is whenever violence is expected, voting percentage will go down, and that will be favorable to the rulers. The defense minister and ex-army officer has told that the voting machines are not dependable. So we are expecting with optimistic caution that Brazil Lula da Silva will get elected as the new president. Cautious optimism that we must have. The fifth item is Joe Biden visit to West Asia. After getting elected as president of US, Joe Biden visited West Asia for the first time. He visited Israel on 13th July. He visited West Bank of Palestine also. Palestinians protested against murder of Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh by Israel's security forces. Joe Biden did not speak anything on this matter. He neither condemned the apartheid regime of Israel and Israel's violation of human rights. US and Israel signed an agreement in Jerusalem. As per this agreement, US will continue to provide military aid to Israel. Joe Biden said that deep relations are there between the people of US and Israel. He said mutual trust prevails. US will give $3,800 crore military aid to Israel in the coming next 10 years. Biden said that they will not allow Iran to make nuclear bombs. Biden's policies are no different from Trump's policies in regard to Israel-Palestine matter. US is establishing its embassy in Jerusalem on the land stolen from the Palestinians. Biden did not say anything about peace talks between Israel and Palestine. He neither condemned Israel's aggression of Palestine. Biden talked about economic and humanitarian aid to Palestine. Palestinian independence is not in the agenda of US. Biden's stand is that Palestinians shall not speak about their freedom and sovereignty. Last year, Israeli soldiers killed Palestinian children on a large scale. Israel bombarded the Gaza of Palestine and many died. Biden said that he is a Zionist, that is, he is interested in the state of Israel for the Jews getting more and more developed. Biden convened a meeting of India, United Arab Emirates and USA Israel, the West Asian Quadrilateral Quad, with the acronym ITU2. This quad is beneficial to Israel. It doesn't serve any purpose for India. On 15th July, Biden visited Saudi Arabia. There is a shortage of petroleum products in Europe due to the ongoing Ukraine-Russian war and economic sanctions on Russia by the US and European Union. Biden emphasized that Saudi Arabia shall boost its oil production to overcome the shortages. At the time of presidential elections in US, Biden abused Saudi Arabia as a country which is looked upon with contempt by many. He called Saudi Arabia as a pariah. Pariah means, if you go through Google the meaning, that is looking at with contempt. So Biden sent $65 crore worth air-to-air missiles to the Saudi Arabia in the name of its defense. 233,000 people were killed in Yemen due to Saudi's war on Yemen. Saudi Arabia did not recognize Israel from 1948. Abraham Accords were signed between Israel, United Arab Emirates and USA in 2020 during Trump period. USA is taking efforts to link Saudi Arabia with the Abraham Accords. Behind the scene talks are going on to isolate Iran. Now Saudi is allowing Israeli flights to fly over Saudi's airspace. The sixth item is on Spain. The Podemos movement was formed in 2014 under the leadership of Pablo Iglesias in the aftermath of massive anti-austerity protests in Spain. Podemos, launched as a populist left-wing platform, emerged as a major party by the time of 2014 European Parliament elections. In 2016, Podemos aligned with the United Left. In 2020, the movement decided to support the Pedro Sanchez led government in Spain, and it became part of the government through which Pablo Iglesias has served as the deputy prime minister. Crónica Libre, the newspaper media in Spain, exposed the false accusations against Podemos and its leader Pablo Iglesias by media, police and big business combined. Nicolas Maduro led Venezuela government deposited huge amounts of money in Pablo Iglesias' name in his bank account, Euro Pacific Bank branch of Granada. This is a totally false information to tarnish the image of Podemos and its leaders. Throughout the world, the ruling classes always try to tarnish the image of the left movement and its leaders, and in Spain also we are seeing that. The last item today is on Italy. Well, Italy is facing a political crisis now. The Five-Star Movement, it's a partner in the coalition government. Suddenly, the Five-Star Movement withdrew its support to the rightist government led by Mario Draghi. On 14th July, the Prime Minister Mario Draghi won the confidence vote of the Senate, but still he submitted his resignation to the President. Five-Star Movement did not take part in the voting on the no confidence motion. The Five-Star Movement objected to a economic recovery scheme of the government to arrest fuel price rise and inflation. This is just a tactic of Five-Star Movement to protect its falling influence. Elections may come soon in Italy. The progressive sections, especially communists, trade unionists, youth student groups, are conducting militant struggles against the neoliberal policies. Austerity measures are adopted as per the dictates of the European Union. The government of Italy is supporting NATO in Ukraine war. Italian government is not at all interested in the welfare of working class, increasing poverty, elimination of the increasing poverty and inequalities, strengthening of education, health in the public sector. These things government are not paying enough attention. A communist leader said that the fall of the Italian government is a good news. Thank you for listening. Let us see next week. Comrades, Lal Salam.